where the first major manufactured political crisis of the second Trump era is well underway, even before Donald Trump has been sworn in. It is a crisis that has led to Pentagon officials issuing warnings like this.
Without an appropriation or a continuing resolution, our troops will miss their end-of-month paycheck during the holiday season. Military reservists drilling after December 20 will not receive pay for those drills, and federal civilians that are required to work during a shutdown will not be paid. Civilian employees whose work is paid for from lapsed appropriations will be furloughed for the duration of the lapse, which appears to coincide with the Christmas and New Year's holidays.
Elon Musk wearing the Grinch costume well. No pay for the 2.1 million troops over the holidays. How exactly did we get here? As we reported during this hour yesterday, the government is barreling toward a possible shutdown. It's after Elon Musk led a rebellion against a bipartisan funding deal. And then Trump quickly followed in Elon's footsteps, only for a bill that met Musk's terms to go down in flames rather dramatically and quickly when dozens of Republicans joined the Democrats in killing it. Here's where things stand this afternoon. The situation remains very fluid, but the House is set to vote on a package that includes disaster relief, assistance for farmers, and keeping the government running until March. It would require a two-thirds majority vote, meaning Republicans would need Democratic support to pass this bill. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale is with us. Also joining us, former Democratic Senator, MSNBC political analyst Claire McCaskill's here. With me at the table, Democratic strategist Basil Smykel's here, and the president of the National Action Network and host of Politics Nation right here on MSNBC, the Reverend Al Sharpton's here. Ali Vitale, the Grinch gave me a cold, so I'll let you take over and bring us up to date on the latest.
The Grinch is also giving us chaos, I guess, here on Capitol Hill as we try to wind down for the year. I don't know which of us has it worse, but as of now, we're still sort of in this limbo period, Nicole, because about 2 hours ago, I was standing downstairs in one of the hallways of doom, as we like to call it, because it's where many of these huddles with Republicans often happen when they are reaching an inflection point or an impasse, and they need to get together to figure out what way they're going to go next. As folks emerged from that meeting, they were actually seemingly confident, not just that a government shutdown would be averted, but also that they had an operating plan for how they were going to do this. They were going to leave the debt ceiling or abolishing the debt by the wayside, basically chucking back the only thing that Trump and Musk actually asked for explicitly in this package. That's now by the wayside. And instead, they're going to sort of pull everything else apart, do a very skinny version of this initial government funding plan, and do it in three pieces. The first is just going to be basic government funding until mid-March. The second is going to be that disaster relief package we've often talked about. And the third is going to be an extension of the farm bill so that you don't run into bigger problems in your grocery store aisles because subsidies and other market prices don't remain fixed based on what the farm bill says. All of those things make sense. It's now just a question of the vehicle that they use to actually pass it and if they have the votes. The vehicle is going to have big implications on the second question, how many votes they need. Right now, it's looking like they're going to do it through a process called suspension, and that means that you need a two-thirds majority on the House floor. If you need a two-thirds majority, you need Democrats. Democrats have mostly been kept in the dark by this since the original bipartisan plan fell apart. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said the lines of communication have now been reopened, but my understanding in the last update that I got from my sources is that Democrats hadn't exactly been keyed in yet as to what this plan actually was, let alone been able to talk it over with their members. I think that's why we're now sort of in this quiet waiting period. We did hear from top Republicans who said there was going to be a vote today, maybe this afternoon, but here we are squarely in the afternoon playing the waiting game and waiting to see how this ultimately plays out.
Ali Vitale, why did Elon Musk kill the bill?
And that is the excellent question here, because you would think that Trump and thusly Musk had been apprised of what Johnson was negotiating over the course of these last several weeks. Johnson has been at him at Mar-a-Lago, but also at every sporting event from wrestling to college football. It's not like these two guys haven't been in touch. And so the fact that Musk came in first and started sowing the seeds of discord and saying that he was going to primary members who voted for this original bill, then Trump comes in over the top and dunks on his top guy in the House and says, I'm not going to go for this unless you put the debt ceiling into it. The debt ceiling is its whole, in and of itself, a whole different negotiation. The idea that you could have negotiated this in 24 hours is just completely unfounded. It's partly why we see it on the cutting room floor right now, because it's just too thorny of an issue. But the why, I think, is really essential to this, and it's the one that we have not yet been able to tease out, other than Musk is trying to talk about this as a seeming extension of his DOGE project, which is to cut wasteful spending from the government and to really take a look at fiscal responsibility. But not keeping the government's lights on doesn't seem like a moment of fiscal responsibility. And so you end up at this impasse of what is actually going on here.
Well, and Elon Musk owns this. I mean, I think whatever people think of him, he killed the bill. Here's what he killed. This is in the Bulwark. Cancer research for kids was collateral damage. Some of the hardest cuts to swallow involved medical research. In particular, the revised funding bill delivered a devastating blow to the fight against pediatric cancer. Anyone traveling has been all over the internet looking to see how it affects travel. TSA agents are bracing for paycheck freeze worries, according to NBC's latest reporting. What is Elon Musk's interest in cutting pediatric cancer research and TSA 3 days ahead of Christmas?
I think that this is more generally about the way that end-of-year spending bills get done. And this is actually not just Musk complaining about this, though he is certainly the one who's unelected and very active on social media with the money, frankly, and the following to actually have an impact on legislating. Put that concern aside for a moment, that an unelected citizen of this country can just do that. But you then look at some of the people here who have been sounding the alarm on this forever. It's the process of the way that people fund the government at the end of the year. We heard people likening this to Christmas trees, and I actually think it's an apt description, despite the fact that it's overkill given the time of year we're in. But think about it as every ornament you hang on a tree. The bill that you referenced there about pediatric cancer is one of the things that got added into this bill as something that lawmakers wanted to see get done by the end of the year, but it was one of many, many pieces of a larger package. The people who complain about the way that we do funding at the end of the year have complaints that it's not a more deliberative process, that people aren't just looking at each dollar that's being added, and that it sort of seems like an automatic press go and just continue funding the government without considering it. Certainly, there are debt concerns that this country should take seriously, but when you actually start looking at what's in the bill, it starts to make sense why it's very difficult to start just saying, oh, we'll slash all of these funding, it doesn't matter, because these are actually good programs that maybe do deserve to be funded, and certainly in the case of pediatric cancer that you point out.
Well, I'm not a Hill reporter, but didn't Trump also come in wanting to raise the debt ceiling? So it wasn't about cuts, was it?
He did come in wanting to raise the debt ceiling. And that's where this whole thing started falling apart, because conservatives, on the one hand, were excited by the fact that Musk and Trump seemed to back them up with the idea that government funding shouldn't just be this massive ballooning thing that we pass in quick fashion at the end of the year. But why you started to see nearly 40 Republicans vote no on this is, A, they never vote on government funding bills like this anyway, but B, when you start to introduce the debt limit and abolishing the debt ceiling, this is potentially spending, and now we're starting to see them actually put numbers on this that are going to come into play next year. But you're talking about potentially raising the debt ceiling to the tune of $2 trillion or $1.5 trillion, and then Republicans now saying, okay, we promise to offset that in pay-fors when we do the reconciliation process next year. That's a really, really tall order. But their complaint is that you can't do the debt ceiling without having a conversation about paying for it. And that's the conversation they didn't have time to have now. And it's a big part of why conservatives weren't backing this bill, despite the fact that it had Trump's blessing.